Okay, so today I want to talk a little bit about Christian gossip, and no, I'm kidding. We'll kind of weave that in there, but
Like we'll do the gossiping.
Yeah, exactly,
Okay.
exactly. No, but specifically the Proverbs 31 man, and this is something that stuck out to me a long time ago. Is there's this little verse hidden in Proverbs 31 about the Proverbs 31 husband, and I think it's a key indicator of who a Proverbs 31 woman is. It's kind of the foundation of who she is. And if this ingredient's missing, I think we sometimes come to the Proverbs 31 passage and want to use it to defend, money making activities or industry outside the home or all these things. And I think it's a great passage to go to show the height and depth and breadth that a woman can serve the Lord in and in what capacity. But how do we know it is for the good of the family or not? And we're going to talk about some of that today.
I'm thoroughly excited, Katie, to talk about this because I haven't really heard your thoughts on this. I mean, there's two parts of it that I'm going to guess. There's two there because you said there's one little line.
Yes.
And I think I've got two guesses.
Okay.
And I'll guess them after we do the intro. But folks, if you enjoy this podcast, we would love it if you're able to leave a rating or a review. If you do that, that helps our podcast grow and reach more people, and it enables us to get more guests that we would love to speak to and ask questions to. And if you watch this on YouTube, if you hit the like button or if you subscribe or if you leave a comment, that also helps our channel grow as well, and we appreciate that. So we will now start the podcast.
The Now That We're a Family podcast.
So Elisha just went outside and you heard all the coyotes outside. And it's crazy because this time last year we were sleeping in a tent, listening to the coyotes outside. We were living in a tent.
Yeah.
We weren't just sleeping in a tent. We were living there, listening to the coyotes. And it was kind of scary at first, and we totally got used to them.
It is weird how I thought, because I stepped outside and it kind of startled me because they sounded close. And I mean, coyotes always sound kind of creepy, and also it's cooling down now. I'm like, it is chilly. And we stayed in that tent through December, which is just, I don't know. We must have been more hardcore last year than we are now. We've gotten soft in our old age or something because that just seems...
that was hard.
That was hard. Yeah.
It was hardcore then.
Something.
Anyways, it is kind of fun.
Before we jump in really quick though, Katie, I do want to let our listeners know that there is still time to join Voetberg Music Academy and be a part of our fall competition. It's happening in October. You have an opportunity to win cash money by competing in either the fiddle, the guitar, the piano, the ukulele, or the mandolin division. There's also a collaboration division. And so if you want to work up a duet, a trio, a quartet, a quintet, a sextuplet, or sextet, what would you call that?
I don't know. Maybe we should move on from that one. I don't know. I think you're probably right.
Yeah. If you have a band and you want to compete in that division, that would be in the collaboration division. And there's money to be won. There are prizes to be, attained by showcasing your musical abilities. This is for people that are in Voetberg Music Academy. And if you're not in Voetberg Music Academy, it's free to participate if you're already in Voetberg Music Academy. And if you're not in Voetberg Music Academy, you just need to pay a small entry fee to be part of the competition. We'll link that below so you can find out more information. Now back to the episode.
All right. So anyways, this all kind of came brought to the forefront of my mind because an interview of Jen Hatmaker got brought up on my YouTube feed. And I don't even know why, because I don't listen to Jen. And this is the part that I said, is the Christian gossip part, because I feel like she's a headliner name in women's ministry. And obviously she's had quite the journey from a more evangelical to a progressive. And
Is she a professing Christian currently?
I actually have no clue.
Yeah, because all I remember is that she was, like you said, kind of mainstream evangelical, kind of like was she like uttered in the same breath as like a Beth Moore and people like that?
Yeah, I think
just
so.
Kind of like just like a big
like Lifeway
women's,
probably.
Yeah, exactly, Lifeway.
Yeah.
And then she just went progressive. And I don't know if she had like homosexual kids or what it was, but something I think just sent her down the track of not holding to scripture anymore. But I thought she was still a professing Christian at that point, just denying all of God's word, basically.
Yeah, I don't really know what her story is, but she just came out with a memoir, and so that piqued my interest because obviously the juicy details of her husband's affair were the headline or whatever, and I think that she starts off her book saying that, and again, I haven't read this, I'm not going to read it, but she starts out the book saying how she found out was about her husband's affair was at 2 a.m. or whatever, and hearing him on the phone with who he was cheating with. And
I don't want to become a gossip channel. This is like,
this isn't her book. So this is her own gossip.
Oh, nice.
This is her own dirty laundry
We're
that
talking
she's
about somebody
airing.
else's gossip.
Yeah. But I think what got brought to mind is just women ministers that make it really big in general. It kind of brought that to the forefront because she was saying this, and everyone wants to throw the husband under the bus. And obviously he cheated on his wife. He was unfaithful. That was a sinful thing to do. But I was like, I want to hear what he has to say. Right. That's what I wanted to do. Okay. So anyways, I do like a Google search and his response comes up.
Okay.
And I'm like, I found it. I found this response. And he just acknowledges the sin that he fell into. I don't know if he uses the word sin, but he was wrong. He messed up. How can you defend yourself for destroying your family? You know what I mean? He knows,
he was saying stuff like
knows
that.
Publicly there's no,
right. Way to save face.
Way to save face, but he just kind of throws in there that by the time this affair happened, he'd been in a sexless marriage for 3 years and he had felt completely invisible in his marriage. And it's
which is not a justifiable reason for having.
No, I'm not saying it's a justifiable reason, and I'm not trying to justify it.
Okay.
But I am saying that it kind of brought to mind that one, I think we see this. This isn't always the case. Okay, so some guys are just losers. I'm not saying that's the case, but in a long-term marriage where you've had a lot of children together and you've had this rich life together, and then when a woman hasn't had sex with you in her marriage for 3 years, she's sinning, before he's sinning. Now they both sinned in their marriage,
right.
But that's unscriptural. And at that point, it seems like if you're that cold-hearted for your spouse, you're wanting a reason, you're wanting him to give you a reason to end it.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I think that
okay.
happens all
I don't
the time.
know how to say this. Like, I know people are in situations where this happens. It's totally wrong. It's totally one-sided or whatever. But like when you've had a 20+ year marriage and then, you're just being as cold as ice.
Well, it's just really like, if once you start hunting for grounds for divorce.
Yes.
Like
you're forcing, you want him to throw a lampshade or have an affair or do something because now she's totally victimized.
Right.
Where she shut him out and said she treated him like he was not her husband before he treated her like she was not his wife.
Right.
And so I'm not saying that what he did was justifiable. It's not. I can't imagine how heartbreaking that would be. But at the same time, she wanted freedom. Because you don't cut someone off like that in that kind of a way. Yeah,
that is I think scenarios like that occur probably on both sides often, where they're hunting for those grounds. They want out of the marriage. They want to maintain the moral high ground on some level, at least from an optics standpoint, right? They've probably hardened their heart.
She's morally the hero,
right?
She was devastated. She was blindsided. She was all these things. It's like, who even was this guy to you anymore? Because he was not your husband in act. He was your husband in name only at this point.
Sure. Which, and before God.
Yes, before God. But I'm saying the emotional connection has already been severed. The physical connection has already been severed. So like, he's acting out in sin, but how are you getting hurt by the situation? You know what I'm saying? How are you getting victimized in this situation? Does that make sense? He's already so far apart from you. You already hate his guts to a certain extent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyways, this isn't honestly, I mean, we're just discussing this because we haven't talked about this and we're discussing it. Yeah. But that isn't what I wanted to even talk about today.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Sure. Yeah. We'll get into your thing, but I think this does happen a lot. And I do think that we won't, we can just go into the actual topic because I could probably open a whole new can of worms with what I was going to say next that we don't need to open right now. Well. Yeah. That's a lot of preamble to get to the point that you want to make.
Yeah. Basically it's like, when you see one thing and it sparks another thought, that was the whole point. But I thought we might as well just talk about that while we were here.
Like this is something.
While we were here. Yeah, exactly. I think it's kind of brutal that it's 5 years old or something. Like this happened a while ago and now it's getting brought up in this hook.
Oh, yeah. So you have to relive it.
Whenever you sell your dirty laundry, I think and other people are involved. I don't think it's very kind. Saying, yeah, it was hurtful to the kids and now you're just doing it all over again. Right. Like we're sitting here in our chair discussing your husband's affair.
Right. It's wild.
Yeah. It's like the guy's remarried to a completely different woman, not even the affair partner. And now she's having to go through his infidelity to his first wife all over again. You know what I mean? And like, it's just,
it is airing it publicly, but that also is the nature of sin too.
That's true.
Is that it just taints your entire life. It really does.
And but to use it as a moneymaker is, to use your husband's sin as a moneymaker to me is kind of brutal.
Yeah. Well, it just is. I mean, that's what happens.
It is what happens, I guess. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about, though, specifically was she was leading other women. And, before...
You're not going to say the part of Proverbs 31.
No, I'm not.
I was going to guess.
Not yet.
You're going to save that?
Yeah, I will save your guess.
All right.
But I think that there is a very dangerous ground that we start walking in when women start doing ministry in an isolated state to other women where there's no masculine involvement. And so I say that to say, I would put Beth Moore in this category. I've loved some things that Priscilla Shirer has done. I've loved some things Beth Moore has done back in the day. But this really stuck out to me actually that for the very first time when Priscilla Shirer was on stage speaking to thousands of women, and she brought up her husband. And okay, what part do you think I'm going to say?
Oh, no, am I for anything? Okay, it's either her children rise up and call her blessed, right? Because
that would be a good thing. We should touch on that. It doesn't have to do with her husband, but that's good. I mean, it does, but that's not.
Okay, well, or is it her husband's known in the gates?
Yes, that was the part I was going to talk about.
Got it. Okay.
In verse 23. So it stuck out to me that I didn't know her husband's name. I don't know what her husband does for work. I didn't know her husband at all. And I think we're looking to these women to teach us as Proverbs 31 women, because in scripture, we are pointed to, especially as young girls and young wives, this Titus 2 effect of these older women who have been there, they have done that, and speaking to us. And that's a very scriptural basis for women's ministry. Like the Bible speaks to that. But in order for a woman to be a Titus 2 woman, she first needs to be some form of a Proverbs 31 woman, right? And that she is honorable to God. She's raising up her children that are calling her blessed. Her husband is trusting in her, right? All these things are kind of going on behind the scenes, and they can be going on behind a very front-facing, outspoken Titus 2 woman. But something that really stuck out to me is her husband sits in the gates, and this is not a backseat role. This is a role where he's involved in the community. Like the men who sat in the gates were the spiritual leaders. They were the ones people went to for wisdom. They were people, maybe an elder position, or they were in a position that even more so than the Proverbs 31 woman, people were coming to for advice. That's what the gate represented.
Sure. Yeah, he's like that elder figure, the wisdom.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people knew his name. This is a guy that people are seeking out. They aren't seeking out just his wife. It's not wrong for someone to seek out a wife that's honorable and should be teaching, right? But he wasn't this guy in the oblivion that no one knows about or hears about. And like, you don't know, is he playing video games in the basement? Is he at home watching the kids? Does he have a career somewhere and doesn't really care what his wife's saying on stage to thousands of people? He's invested in ministry and leading ministry even before she is. And I think that that's something that we can really overlook when we're going into Proverbs 31, because the majority of it's about her, right? And all the things she's doing, and she's buying land, and she's running servants, and she's managing this household, and she's taking care of all this stuff and being this crazy powerhouse of economy and industry and ministry and all these things. And her husband, even while it's really subtle in that Proverbs 31, he is playing this very active role, more so than her even. It's not this passive position.
Sure.
And I think that's the danger with a lot of women that are creating devotionals and doing these things on Lifeway and whatnot, solo from their husbands, is that it's kind of hard to tell, like, we just don't know these guys' names. We don't know who they are. And so it's hard. Like, how are they the spiritual leader if they aren't the spiritual leader? You know, and I'm not saying I don't know what's going on in these people's homes, but I think what stands out to me in Proverbs 31 is that the man of the Proverbs 31 woman is a visible man.
Sure. Yeah. And in that context, like the Proverbs 31 woman, all of her industry, everything at that point was very localized, right? And so if he was known in the gates in that city and she was doing business in that city, that all makes a ton of sense. I think the internet and just like the globalization, even pre-internet, of books and touring, having touring speakers at conferences, like the whole conference circuit has changed the landscape of economy. Everything's like nothing's localized anymore, right? And so even these women that you bring up, Beth Moore, Priscilla Shirer, in theory, their husbands could be on a local level very like strong leaders, right? And respected men, and they could be heavily involved, whatever, in the city council or what, elders in their churches. And on the very local level, have that more prominent position in people's minds. And so when they think of the Shires or they think of the Moores on a local level, it's like, oh, they think, well of the husband. That could happen. But then the internet and just the nature of like big evangelical, Big Eva, right? As it's called, you get the book deals and you go on the tours. That's who's showcased. And I think probably when that stuff's initially starting, it probably just seems like a good thing where it's like, and I don't know either of these ladies' stories. Like, I don't know their origin stories at all. And obviously we're not like huge fans of their content, right? Like,
I disagree theologically on a baseline level. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just trying to like from circumstantially play the whole devil's advocate here. Cause I agree with you. And then there was another point that I was going to make of a couple that I think does a great job with this. But I could see how, like, if either one of these ladies was kind of doing women's ministry in a way that really honored her husband locally, and then that starts scaling, then at the beginning being like, well, this isn't that big of a deal. This is what we've always done. But then you look downstream and you're kind of like, wow, we didn't know it would come to this. Like, this is wild. And I'm not saying that's the case with either of these ladies. They might have wanted the fame and to be front stage from the beginning, right?
No, and I'm so glad you brought this up, because there's two things I'm saying. I'm not specifically condemning these women that I'm speaking to, like, oh, and their husbands were who what. Like, just because I didn't know who their husbands were, like you said, doesn't mean that other people weren't seeking out their husbands, like, teach me your ways, right, on a local level, and that they were invested in a local ministry. I think that's really important. This isn't to judge other people's forward-facing or unforward-facing ministries, because there is also another element here, which is a certain spouse can definitely be a lot more charismatic and loving the limelight more than another spouse. So if a woman's just like, hey, I would like to, be front-facing, and the guy's like, hey, I'd like to be in the background here, like working on my computer or whatever, or funding it or whatever, that's great. I'm not saying that both couples need to equally be in the limelight or whatever. It's just the nature of her husband. Like, I don't think we can judge this for each couple we see on the internet. Does that make sense? Like when a woman is a forward-facing person and we don't know who her husband's name is. But I think it's something to watch out for as we are looking for Titus women to pour into our own lives. There might be a woman we really admire online. There might be a woman that we really admire in person. But where is her husband? Who is her husband?
Right.
Is he in the dust? Is he someone that other people seek out? Because if her husband's not being sought out for wisdom or advice, something is off in that home.
Got it. Yeah.
If just the woman is being looked to for advice, he's not in his role properly in a scriptural way.
Yeah. When I think of my parents and your parents, when I think of your grandparents, like it was very equally sought after. I feel like as far as the wisdom and the counsel from. Would you agree?
Yeah,
like,
I would.
And I know that they're not like
they aren't online. Like no one's online.
Exactly. But on a very localized level, it's like people, they weren't just seeking my mother out. And it's kind of like, well, just, I mean, what does Joe do? Joe Voetberg, who really knows, and that also exists on a local level. Like I can picture people growing up where the wife was the charismatic, like very outspoken kind of leader figure. And nobody really wanted to have anything to do with her husband. And that is a key component to the Proverbs 31 woman. You can't really cherry pick. It's like, she's all those things. Like that's what makes her the Proverbs 31 woman, is that she's all these things.
Yes.
The couple that I was going to also mention, and I actually don't know the details of this. I just remember hearing, I maybe heard it from you, or I can't remember. No. But it was like Doug and Nancy Wilson.
I heard that from someone else.
Oh, did you?
I thought I heard it from you. Yeah.
Where it's like she doesn't go speak at, and I could be, people could fact check me on this. It's like she doesn't go speak at conferences without
Christian gossip.
Yeah, without her husband,
yeah,
Douglas, because of what it communicates. And they go together if they're going to go, if she gets invited. And again, he's highly sought after as well.
But that's a case in point to me, right? Like people want her opinion, but they also want her husband's opinion.
Yeah.
And so I think that's interesting. This is not to dock female-facing ministries, female-facing events, or women-led things.
Yeah,
saying that the husband, if the husband doesn't show up on a camera or the husband doesn't show up behind a microphone, that's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that in general, we should want his ear as much as in his input, either the people in the community or people who know of him, as much as hers. Yeah.
And maybe another good example, because some recent guests we've had on the podcast, is you think of like, you mentioned last week, the Tilly Delahaye. It's like, she's the wife of a pastor. He's clearly in this position of spiritual leadership, of prominence, where he's respected and sought after, even though she's more online, so to speak, than he is. The same thing with Claire, do you say Morrell or Morrell, the gal that wrote the Tech Exit? Her husband's a pastor, right? She's more online. She's writing books about tech, but her husband is a very prominent figure in their world, like in their personal world. It's the same thing, and it's the same thing with Pakuluk, that lady. The same thing. Her husband's this figure, even though he's not as online as either of those ladies. Like the ladies are the ones that we talked to. Yeah. But all their husbands are, I mean, those are just recent ones that we've talked to.
Yeah, they're admirable men that you're curious what they're thinking. And when you meet their wives, it does speak to the husband, and you think, wow, like he can safely trust in his wife because she's such a wonderful representation of their family.
Yes.
And so it is beautiful when you meet a woman that's just radiating the Lord, is intelligent, cares so much about her mission and her passion and all these things. And it speaks well of the husband. Right. It doesn't make him look worse as a result of her success. So anyways, I think it's something, another couple that I think does this really well, that actually hates probably everything I believe in, like my theology, are the Pearls.
Right.
Because, I mean, I think they'd probably have problems with this like 6 Ways Sideways, but I really admire how they're both like these fiery people, but they're both sought after by people who appreciate what they do. And we've been blessed by their ministry at times too. So I think that there's so many people that are doing this in a good way. And I don't think it has to even be in the same industry. Like if a woman's in ministry, it doesn't mean the guy needs to be a pastor, right? Like she can be ministering to women and his ministry is his business. Or, but is he kind of like this lump of potato in the back closet that people kind of try to keep hidden? Or is he just someone who's sought out by people locally? And I think that's something that really can help define what a Proverbs 31 woman is, even more than like, can she work outside the home? Can she not? Can she, make money inside the home? Can she not? Like all the things we go to this passage to like try to decipher, right? The roles of a modern industrious woman. I think it's more telling to say, hey, before we checking just our own hearts, honestly, with like, are our husbands being sought out? Like starting there, like, do people care about our husband's opinions? How do I set up my husband so that people care more about his opinions or speak better of him? And so that people know that he's worthy of, hearing from, because I do think that the way a wife communicates helps her husband be in the gate, just like he helps his wife have influence. If one spouse has no influence, then the other spouse is not doing them any favors in that way, because how we communicate about each other has a lot to do with that. Something else that stands out to me in the Proverbs 31, both the husband and the man and the woman, is the time frame. Like I can't, children. Yes, this is huge. Yeah, and I think that speaks to the age of both these people. And this is, for me, it's a total encouragement, because it's like I'm not a Proverbs 31 man now because it's like I'm young. Like I don't think that exists. My children don't rise up and call. Like I'm not a Proverbs 31 woman. I'm like an aspiring Proverbs 31 woman. Yes. Right. Like that's what you're growing towards. Yes. And so if you're frustrated with like, man, this isn't my reality. Like maybe you feel like your husband is the guy, the bump on a log, and you're like, well, if there's just a lot of time, like there is so much time and hope. It wasn't the 20-year-old sitting at the gate. Exactly. Yeah. It was these like wizened older men. Yeah. It's the same with the man that, what's the other man that like you read from Psalm 112. 112. Yeah. It's like, that's an older man. And I'm not saying that as an excuse to like, that way, though. Be like, well, I don't have to act this way. I want to aspire to that Proverbs 31 man. And I want to aspire to the Psalm 112 man. And the man in 127, 128, that like, because he's the one that's like, I don't know if I'm going to get much more fruitful, honey. Yeah. Well, you're being the fruitful vine your job's done on that one. Yeah, exactly. Your job's done on that one. It's up to me now to finish that one. Like I think in God's time frames and in his economy, like we need to have a longer term vision for us reaching our maturation and our moment of, or like our moments of people coming to us for wisdom. It's like, I know that's how it is for me. I love going to older people for wisdom, just because you can't beat experience. It just means so much more. And so many, like 60s is still young, right? Like there's a lot of, Lord willing, if you've got health, there's a lot of years of ministry. And so if you're sitting here in your 30s feeling like you aren't that man that's sitting at the gate, or you feel like your husband is not the man that's sitting at the gate, it's like, well, you've got a lot of time. You have a lot of time to build him into that man. Yeah, like exactly. To encourage him and tell him he's worthy of it and pray for him. And like just really build up your husband. Like I think, over 30 years, he's going to safely trust in you. His heart's going to safely trust in you. He'll have no need of spoil. He will be someone that has been praised publicly for 30 years. People are going to think this guy rocks, and he's going to live into that. And like praised by the spouse, you mean? Yeah, praised by his wife. Everyone's going to be like, and then he'll grow into that position. And I mean, I do feel like you are that way now. Like if there was a 30-year-old position open. I appreciate at that. At the gate, you'd have it. But something that you've done and you continue to do in ways that I don't deserve it is you talk of me as though I'm higher than I really am. Like that's how you speak of me. No. And I think that it's effective because I want to believe I've grown because of how you've called me to a higher, not called me up like, hey, get up here. It's like, you've literally No.
spoken
Elisha,
of me like I'm in a higher
challenged me and
position.
inspired me to grow. Yeah, you are.
But you've always spoken so well of me publicly and privately, and in spite of all my shortcomings. And I just think that's the power that a spouse has over their spouse, is they really can speak life into them and speak like maturity and speak growth and speak inspiration. And
yeah, you do that more than anyone I know. I like read stuff you say or whatever. You just speak so kindly of me and you overlook all my faults. It's very, very gracious. Like Elisha paints me in this beautiful light.
That's how you are, honestly.
I read it, I'm like, wow, I really want to grow to be that fictional woman you're married to. So
that's the life I'm living. Yeah, that's the life I'm living.
But I just feel like, yeah, this does take a lot of the pressure off. Because I think when I was reading Proverbs 31 Woman as a teenager girl, I was like, okay, wow, like maybe when I have a couple kids, I'll be Proverbs 31. And I do think that that's something that we're supposed to aspire to be, because most of the people who I hear talking about being Proverbs 31 are like in their 20s and 30s. We're all trying to decide if we're doing what a Proverbs 31 woman
have
does.
I made it yet?
Which is no, but try, like, does she do this? Does she not do this?
Oh, God.
Right?
Okay.
Those are the people who are seeking out this passage. And I do think that there's something to, you want to do what's going to, in the long run, get you to this place.
No doubt.
But I think it was you, Elisha, when we were reading this passage, we were like, her children rise up and call her blessed. Like, your 2-year-old can't rise up and call you blessed. They literally just can't stand or they can't speak very good, sure. Right? And then your younger children, they're asking you often for what they need, but they don't think, wow, my mom just does so much hard work. Like every once in a while, they'll tell you you're pretty or, thanks for making this or something. And it's so sweet. And then even sometimes your teen children, they don't appreciate the value of what you did. And I think actually we were going over to celebrate your mom for something and her birthday maybe. And you were like, wow, my mom did so much for me. And you're like, I don't feel like I appreciated that. I gave her a hard time.
Sure. And
at that dinner, your dad brought up, hey, you children need to rise up and call your mom blessed, and you guys did. And
we didn't even need prompting. That's what's wild.
Yeah, that's true.
Like every year now, all of my siblings and I like go way out of our way to be with my mom on her birthday. We can't speak highly enough of our mother now that we're adults, I think.
No, I think your dad was like in this joking way,
sure.
bringing it up.
Sure,
like, oh yeah, but you guys had like over and over just gone around the table already and told her what you appreciated about her. And it hit both of us just like, wow, like now that you're 35 or 34, don't want to rush it.
Sure. Yeah.
You're, you and all your adult siblings that are in their later 30s, their 40s, they're sitting around and saying, Mom, you're blessed.
Yes.
You're amazing.
Here she is in her 60s.
Yeah, because you can fully appreciate, like you're a parent now. You see what she did. You see the sacrifice, all of a sudden stuff that was annoying or was like, I don't know why you did that, or you could have done it better or whatever. It falls away and you just realize, wow, you sacrificed your life for me, know? And I think you understand more what a mother or a father did for you.
Right.
When you're in that position. And so I think that was just encouraging for both of us to leave that event and be like, oh, this is great. Like the tell of a Proverbs 31 woman or a man that fears the Lord or all these things. Like you said, a man who sits in the gates. It's not who you are when you're 20. It's not who you are when you're 30. It is who God calls you to be. And hopefully, by the time our children are raised, you guys know we talk to you guys about stuff we're doing with our kids. And I'm like, we will see what they say about it.
Yeah.
I want to get quieter and quieter, honestly, like the older they get. Cause I think when they were little, I was like, we're doing the right thing, and they're still little. And already I'm second guessing like, well, we'll see what they have to say about this in a decade, because really that's going to be the true tell of were our hearts right? Were we submitted to the Lord? Were we listening to his leading? Were we humble? It's going to be what our kids say about us, not what we're saying about ourselves. And, that's scary, but that's also exciting and worth seeking for. And so I think basically these tells to this Proverbs 31 woman are, who do those closest to her say who she is? Do her children tell everybody that they know, like you guys know, I go around telling everybody my mom's amazing. Do they say my mother's amazing? Go talk to her. Do people see her and be like, I want to talk to her husband? And
what does her husband
know
say?
more about him? Who is this guy?
Yeah. I mean, like when you
what does her husband say?
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Like when you go to the people closest to people, it really has to be the people closest to people, like their spouse, their children, the family. Because that's who the Bible points to as being like your credentials, like the credentials for elders, the credentials for going again to the Proverbs 31 woman or the man that fears the Lord. It's like, that kind of is and you said quickly, when you look at the man that fears the Lord, or you look at the Proverbs 31 husband or that lady, you said it's not who they are in their 20s and 30s. What you're saying is that person that the Bible's talking about is not in their 20s and 30s, but what that person did in their 20s and 30s mattered greatly. And it made them the person that they were. I think you can make decisions in your 20s, 30s, and 40s that you actually then reap the benefits from, or the blessings from, or whatever you want to call it, in those later years. And I've been contemplating that a lot. It's like, how are we spending our youth? Our youth is just running away from us. It is this fleeting thing. And what am I going to have to show for it? Like, where am I putting that youthful zeal and energy and my youthful strength that is so temporary? And I want in my 60s, if the Lord blesses me with that much life, to be like, oh, I'm really glad with how I spent my youth. Like, I'm really glad with how I spent it.
Yeah. So I think there's something to that. And I also think it would be, just even any woman we're following currently online. I don't think it's a bad idea to Google, who is her husband? What's he doing? Who is he? What's he involved in? What are his hobbies? Get that more full perspective of whose advice are we following here? Who has such an incredible relationship with the Lord that she's telling all of us about it and telling us how to do it and isn't sleeping with her husband. You know what I mean? Or,
oh, right. Yeah.
I'm serious. Like if you talk to that guy and are like, hey, how's life?
Yeah.
Pre-sin of the affair, right? Going back to Mrs. Hatmaker there. Going to your husband, he's probably like not real stoked on life.
Sure.
Yeah,
and as far as her credentials pre the affair.
Yeah, and obviously then you go to her side of the story and she's saying, well, I'm not sleeping with him because he's XYZ and cold to me. And you know what I'm saying?
Sure,
like
yeah.
There's all this back and forth. I'm not trying to point a finger. I do think both spouses just seperated from each other over this. Clearly,
it's usually how it works.
Years there was a falling out.
Yeah.
It wasn't like one person was just this really evil person. It sounds like there was this decay.
Yeah.
That was over time.
Yeah. Katie and I are like always the skeptics. Whenever we hear like the one side of the story, we're always like, like,
Yeah. I do think there are those cases where someone's like married quickly or something like that. And you're like, whoa, I had no clue who this person
or like
was.
true victims.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's true victims and all that. So that's not what I'm negating. I'm saying when someone's had like decades long marriage, they've had children, and then they want to act like this person just like, it was like a freak accident and something happened. I'm kind of like, there's a track record of something else here.
Right.
There's just, there's so much history, So anyways, all that said though, I think that it would have been very telling that like, we don't want to follow this woman. You know what I mean? As a younger woman. Yeah. You could see that sooner.
Yeah.
And obviously I do think it's tricky to tell online. That is just the danger of the online world, and before the online world, it's the devotional world and the book world and all that, is women can just say whatever they want, and I think it was like that with Rachel Hollis with her divorce.
Right.
I remember not being shocked at all when I told Elisha, wow, because I'd been reading her books, we were young entrepreneurs. She was talking business and all this, and her and Dave got a podcast, and I was listening to that, and then it hit this point where I was like, I can't listen to their podcast anymore. Like this isn't healthy, and you could feel it. And then it's like, oh, there was this distance there. And so anyways, it is tricky for us to discern, and like, but I do think we need to be wise, I guess, in who we are following and who we are listening to. And when it comes to women listening to women, We need to know a little bit more of the full picture. And then honestly, just for me, like seeking my heart too, like what are my children going to say? What's Elisha going to say about what I'm communicating to the public? And checking our own hearts too, with like, what would our husbands say? Would they encourage women to go hear what we have to say? Or they'd be like, like smile, I'm not going to say anything,
Yeah. Exactly. Vice versa.
Most guys are too nice, I feel like, in a public, like mixed gender, to be like, no, my wife's lame. They might bash their wife to someone that's like another guy, but they aren't going to bash their wife to another woman. They know it's in bad taste.
Yeah, but sure. Whoa. Sorry about that. Unprofessional. That was a full on yawn there that I did. I do think we need to wrap this thing up, but
I know.
Yeah. That is always like the fear of, I think, a spouse. It's like, you don't want to be saying something that is so true and then having your spouse say, that's a very good point. I just wish they lived it, like, and that can be whether you've got a big following or you don't have a big following. You can be like saying the truth. I could be saying how men should honor and, and love and cherish their wives. And it could be very true. And you could be like, well, that is very true. I wish she did that. You
could say whatever you want. It'd be true. It'd be true. But yeah, anyway, so I know this was a little more like, probably just like I said, it was a little gossipy, honestly, in terms of talking about someone else that I don't know the whole situation.
Yeah, and you guys didn't want to know. You guys didn't want to know about it, and now you know.
Now you know, and I don't even know the whole situation. Yeah. It was like a 3-minute clip, and then, one article, and I brought it up to Elisha, and we decided to talk to you guys about it. So, take it for what it's worth. But ultimately, I think it's a warning sign. I want to seek my own heart, and I want to make sure we don't get out ahead of our tips.
Ever.
Yeah.
Folks, thanks for listening. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.